219, and the topic of the course code is object oriented analysis and design, OAD. Right, so we will not be doing programming in this. We will be understanding the analysis and design part, which you already have done it in software engineering, but this time we are doing it in object oriented analysis and design according to object oriented concepts, how analysis and design is done. So you will be studying about different diagrams which are there. You will be studying about UML, Unified Modeling Language, where you will study about different diagrams. So we'll be talking about that, right? So I'm just sharing my screen. So everybody is able to see my screen?
Ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So this is your study material, and this is your first block. You have 4 blocks in your study material. You can, those who don't have books, they can download it from eGyan Kosh, right? So you have 4 blocks: block 1, block 2, block 3, block 4. Right, so we are doing block 1 and unit 1. We are on unit 1 right now of block 1. So unit 1, block 1 has introduction to object oriented modeling. This is your topic, where you will be studying about what is object orientation, what is the basic philosophy, what are the principles, basic constructs, right? What are classes, benefits of object orientation, and what is object oriented analysis and design, what are the different tools which are there. So we are talking about object oriented analysis and design, which is your main topic, right? So it is an approach for developing software system using object oriented software engineering concepts. So we are talking about object oriented analysis and design. So analysis and design according to object orientation. How do you do software engineering through that? That is what the approach is, or that is what the concept is. So we have lot of options here. There is never only one right way to solve a problem. More options may exist. So you basically have to solve a problem. You have to do analysis of the problem. Then you have to do the design of the problem. Like we talked about that in first semester in your software engineering. Same way here also you will do the same thing. The more options you have, the better chance you will find a good solution to every problem. So first, requirements are those things which your system must do to work correctly. So you will find out the requirements of the system, what is the problem and what are the requirements for solving that problem. Then object oriented analysis. First we are talking about OA. What is object oriented analysis? It is a primary technical step in developing a software system using the object oriented approach. Right. So this is the first approach, or the first primary technical step to solve the to develop a software. OA is based on a set of basic principles that include modeling the problem domain, representing behavior, and describing functions of the system. So OA, that is object-oriented analysis, is a set of principles that include modeling of the problem domain. That means you have to model it, right? Representing behavior and describing functions of the system. So you have to model the problem, you have to find out the behavior and the functions of the system. And in object-oriented design, the second part, the design part, the model created using OA, that is object-oriented analysis, is transformed into a design model that works as a plan for software development. So once you have analyzed, the object-oriented analysis has been done, that model is transformed into a design model, which is object-oriented design, that work as a plan for software development. So object-oriented analysis and design methods, they emerged in the 1980s, and object-oriented analysis methods emerged during the 1990s. So they are saying the object-oriented analysis and design methods were emerged in 1980s, and analysis method emerged during the 1990s. The later on development was done in 1990s. In the early stage, object orientation was primarily associated with developing graphical user interfaces and few other applications. In OOAD, a very basic concept followed is one should model software system as collection of cooperating objects, treating individual objects as instances of a class within a hierarchy of classes. So if some of you must be from computer background, so they must be knowing what is object oriented programming. So in object oriented programming, the main thing is objects, right? So objects are real world entities. So through the objects, the cooperating objects, you treat individual objects as instances of class. So there will be a class which is a collection of objects, and hierarchy of classes will be there. So all these cooperating objects and classes and all will make your final model. So that is what object oriented analysis and design will be taking care of. So here they are just introducing you to object orientation. So the concepts of OADs were introduced in 1990. Concept was introduced in 1980, sorry, and early 1990s. And multiple OAD approaches were suggested, and the popular one were. So when the concept was introduced in 1980s, and then early 1990s also, but some development was done between these periods. So many approaches were followed for development of OOAD. Some of the popular ones are object modeling technique, OMT, for software modeling and designing. James Rambagh suggested it in 1991. So, for one of the popular approaches, OMT, that is object modeling technique, which was suggested by James Rambagh in 1991. He has suggested three types of models. So, he suggested that in OMT, that is object modeling technique, there are three types of models: object model, dynamic model, and functional model. We'll be talking about all the three models which are in OMT, that is object modeling technique. So another approach, the second approach was given by Booch, right? Grady Booch was the person who proposed it. So that methodology was known as Booch methodology of object-oriented analysis and design. So it was proposed by Grady Booch. So these are the two approaches they are saying. One was OMP, object modeling technique, suggested by James Rambagh, and the second one is Grady Booth's proposed methodology, which is Booch methodology. So the OAD approach is sequential in nature. The analysis phase establishes the system requirements. Sequential means first you have to do analysis, then you will do design, right? So it is sequential in nature, one by one, right? So so perform analysis from the customer's perspective. Once the analysis phase is complete, the design phase, which is iterative in nature. Design phase is iterative. Iterative means repetitive. You have to repeat. If the customer is satisfied with the design, you can go further. If the customer is not satisfied with the design, he wants some changes or something has to be implemented again, then you again do it. So that's why it is known as iterative in nature. Repetitive things are there. So once the analysis phase is complete, the design phase, which is repetitive in nature, maps the logic design to the physical design. So now you will, from the analysis, you will map the logic design to the physical design. The prototype is created and tested. Then your prototype is created. A small model is created and tested. It is one of the widely used approaches in object-oriented software engineering. So this approach is a widely used approach. Another popular approach for object-oriented software engineering, which was proposed by Ivor Jacobson. So these are the two previous ones. One was object modeling technique. The other is Booch methodology. Another one was proposed by Ivor Jacobson in 1992. It was the first object-oriented design method that made use of use case design in design. So this was object-oriented software engineering approach, right? Object-oriented software engineering, which was proposed by Ivor Jacobson. So he used the first diagram, which is known as use case diagram, for designing, right? The phases included in his approach include requirement gathering, analysis, design, implementation, and testing. So same way when you have studied the SDLC software development lifecycle model in software engineering, so you have phases like requirement gathering, analysis, design, implementation, and testing. So same phases were used here also. He also introduced interaction diagrams to depict the sequence of operation in real time, and state transition diagram to depict the change in state of object during execution. So he also introduced two more diagrams. One was interaction diagram, right, which was, or you can say sequence diagram, which was depicting the sequence of operations, how the operation is happening in real time. So those sequence of operation, and one was state transition diagram. So how one state of the object changes from one state to another, how the execution is happening, the state change is happening, is shown through state transition diagram. So they are pioneers in the field of object-oriented software engineering. So these diagrams are one of the main diagrams which were used now also in object-oriented analysis and design or object-oriented software engineering. So we now developing a model for a software system needs to follow well-defined steps. Prior to the system development or transformation, it is essential to have a blueprint for the system. So we have to first create a blueprint to have well-defined steps. First, we have to create a blueprint. It is similar to having a model or design for building a residential society. When we try to understand the object-oriented modeling, we may find entirely new way of thinking about problem analysis and creating a system model. So we'll be talking about those only, and the different diagrams which the object-oriented methodology is all about. So OMT, that is object modeling technique, covers aspects of object-oriented analysis and design. OMT provides a very productive and practical way of software development. The best part of object-oriented technology is that it is not language dependent. There is no need to consider a final implementation language during object-oriented modeling. So when we are talking about object-oriented technology, so they are saying it is not language dependent. That means you can make a modeling without considering any language implementation. So you can make a model and then you can implement in whatever object-oriented languages are there. You have C++, you have Java, you have Python. Python also follows object-oriented concepts, right? So you or .NET languages which are there. So whatever languages you are using, that is not important, right? So it is not dependent on the language. You can make the model according to your modeling technique. So analysis helps you to ensure your system works in real world context. OOT combines structural, control and functional aspects of the system. So we'll be studying that in block 2 and block 3 about the analysis. When we talk about a system, it means the complete application or the project. It is important to note that the increasing complexity of system increases the importance of modeling technique. Because of its characteristics, OM is a suitable modeling technique for handling complex systems. So object-oriented modeling is suitable for handling complex systems, and object-oriented modeling is basically for building an application model, which includes a system implementation detail during the system design. So that is there. So any system development follows a software development life cycle, which mainly includes analysis, design, and implementation. During object-oriented modeling, identification and organization of application with respect to its domain is performed rather than their final representation in specific programming language. So we will be following the same thing, the development life cycle, which is there, analysis, design, and implementation. But we will not be talking about the implementation. We'll be talking about the analysis and design. So once the system modeling is complete, it can be implemented in any suitable programming language. So once you have analyzed and designed the system, then you can implement it in any programming language you wish, right? The object-oriented programming language, basically. So the OOM approach is an encouraging approach in which software developers have to think about the application domain throughout most of the software engineering lifecycle. In this process, the developer is required to identify the inherent processes of the application. First, the developer organize and understand the system correctly, and then they detail the data structure and functions of the system. Also, it is found that most good design comes from an analysis of bad design, right? So therefore, OOM analysis plays a very important role in proper system design. So you can solve a big problem by breaking it into many functional pieces and then working on each piece individually. For this, you need to perform a proper analysis of the system. As change is constant, your system should always improve every time you work on it. It is important for any designer or developer to make that sure that their software does what the customer wants to do. So that is the main perspective. You want your software to be good, and it should be according to the software or the customer's requirement. What they want, you should give it to them, right? That is the main thing, right? So the different things they are talking about is a requirement, which is usually a single thing, and you can test that thing to make sure that you have actually fulfilled the requirements. So whatever the requirements of the customer is, you have to see that you are fulfilling that requirement from your software perspective, right? That is there. So they are talking about that. Then object oriented modeling and design. So what is object oriented modeling and design, right? So in it consists of analysis and design phases. You can say object oriented analysis and design, modeling or design. You can say analysis and design. So it consists of analysis and design phases which are related but distinct. The first step of OOAD is identifying requirements and developing an object model of the application domain, that is OOA phase. That means you will identify the requirements and you will develop a model of the analysis, right? Then software specifications are established during analysis. In this phase, using various models, an attempt is made to understand the problem by looking at real world concepts. So basically, you will be find out all the requirements which are there, and you will develop a model. And so there are various models which are there to understand the problem by looking at it in the real world concepts. Right. The next step is OOD. So once you have identified the requirements and made a model according to that in object-oriented analysis, then you go to the next step, that is OOD, that is object-oriented design, in which the important construct uses the objects. So for most important thing is your object. So an object is the instance of a class and contains data structure in addition to its behavioral characteristics. Objects can interact with each other to design various applications and programs. So here you will be talking in design phase, you will be talking according to the objects. So object is the real world entity, which is the main concept. And object is an instance of a class. So you will make a class also, which is your data structure. And it will have a data structure and a behavior according to that. And you will design according to your objects. So that is what the main thing is. So now object-oriented modeling, OOM. Object-oriented modeling is divided into various stages. So OOM of the system passes through the following steps. So what are the steps where your object modeling pass? Requirement analysis of the system. That means your requirements are there. Designing of the system. Then after a requirement, that means you will do analysis, requirement analysis. Then you will design the system. Once you have analyzed, in analysis also your models are created. In analysis, when we see there are three kinds of model which we had seen earlier also, I don't know where it was written. So you have three kinds of models in your object oriented technique, modeling technique. So you have object model, dynamic model, functional model. So these are the three models you will make in the analysis phase, and then you will design the system, right? So in the design system, you are then you will design the system. Detailed designing with a focus on objects in the system will be there. So you will have design like architectural design, object design will be there. So these detailed design will be there. Then implementing the model, that means the coding part. Implementation is done. So these are the analysis model. Then the design will be there. Then coding will be there. So this is what they have portrayed. So these are the phases of your object-oriented modeling, right? So system analysis at this stage, that means this one, right? Analysis at this stage, a problem statement is formulated, and an analyst builds a system model to encourage real-world situations. This phase shows the essential properties associated with the situation. The analysis model is a concise, precise abstraction and agreement on how the desired system must be developed. So you can say that here the objective is to provide a model that can be understood and also criticized by any application experts in the area, no matter whether the expert is a programmer or not. So they are saying that you have to formulate a problem, that what problem you have to solve, right? You have to find out all the requirements also. So the essential properties associated with the situation you have to find out. Then in the analysis model is a concise, precise abstraction and agreement on how the desired system must be developed. So that is there. Then all the system requirements and their properties should be defined at this stage. So all the system requirements, the properties, everything has to be defined. The main objective of this stage is to provide a model that can be understood by any naive user or expert in that area. So they are saying you may or may not be a programmer, so you can be a naive user who is a new user who doesn't know anything about programming, but he can also understand the system analysis. So that is what analysis phase is there. Then system design phase. During this stage, the complete system architecture, this is your design phase, this one. The complete architecture is designed. System design, whole system is divided into subsystems. That means you will divide the system into subsystems, small systems, based on both the system analysis model and proposed architecture of the system. Based on the analysis model, the system architecture is defined and designed in this phase. Also, when the system is big and complex, it is partitioned into various small subsystems based on the analysis model and system architecture. So once your analysis has been done, now you will partition or divide your system into subsystem, and then you will do the designing of the system according to the analysis which you have done. Now, after the system design, right, there is object design you are doing. So during this stage, a design model is developed based on the analysis model already developed in the earlier phase of development. Object design decides the data structure and algorithm needed to implement each of the classes in the system using the implementation details in the analysis model. So in the object model, what you are doing is you are deciding that what data structure, what algorithm you will be using to implement this particular system. So the steps followed in object designing are: procedure or operations performed on various classes are identified and finalized. That means you will find out what procedures or functions. Procedure or operations are functions which will be there for your classes. The logic required to implement the procedure gets decided, or the algorithm you can say. All the paths for retrieving data are optimized. A list is prepared for all the permitted external interfaces. Classes and their associated operation are rearranged or adjusted to increase the inheritance properties between classes. So here you will always also check if you have multiple classes and if you can do inheritance. That means inheritance is a concept where there is a parent class, there is a child class, and it is inheriting from some parent, right? So if it is inheriting from the parent, so what you it can have the same properties or the methods which are there in the parent class. It can access, you can access in the child class also. So that concept you can see if you can implement inheritance. So you can arrange your classes according to that. Then packaging of all associated classes is done in a single module. So sometimes you can package all the classes. Suppose you have a employee detail module or employee something. So related to the information related to an employee will be kept in an employee module. Then sales module will be different. So different packages you can develop. According to that, you can make associated classes be in a single module. So that is done in the object design. Then implementation is there. At this stage, the final implementation of classes and relationships developed during object design takes place using any particular programming language. So implementation of database and hardware implementation is done in this phase. So here the classes and relationship is developed, and your database and hardware implementation is done. So actual implementation must be done using software engineering practice. This helps to develop a flexible. So here you will do the programming basically. So that is your final thing. So this is what you do in your stages with the different stages of object-oriented modeling. Right. Now, object-oriented techniques. So first we talked about object-oriented modeling here, which is divided into these phases. Then we are talking about object-oriented technique. So to cover the complete system description, whole object-oriented modeling is done using three kinds of models. So the whole object-oriented modeling, which is this, is done with three kinds of models, which are also in here also: object model, dynamic model, functional model. So these are the three models: object model, dynamic model, and functional model. So these are the three models which cover the complete system description, right? So what is an object model? Object models are used to describe the objects and their relationship with each other in the system. So in object model, you are describing what are the different objects in your system and their relationship with each other, right? The dynamic model, the second one, is describes the interaction among objects and information flow in the system. So how the objects are interacting with each other. So the interaction which is happening between the objects will be shown in the dynamic model, and the information flow, how the information is flowing from one object to the other, that is shown in the dynamic model. A functional model, if you talk about the functional model, the third one describes the data transformation in the system, how the data is being transformed from one form to the other, how data is transformed, that is shown in the functional model. Right. So these are the three models. Object model, where you are describing what are the objects and their relationship. In the second dynamic model, you are showing the interaction between the objects, the data flow. And functional model, you are showing the data transformation, how data is being transformed from one to another, how data is changing. Right. So all three models are applicable during all the stages of development. So all the stages of development, you can apply these models. These models bear the responsibility of acquiring implementation details of the system development. So we will also talk about these models also. Right. So before we further discuss object-oriented modeling, let us see how object-oriented development differs from structural development of the system. So this question may be asked in your theory paper. What is object-oriented development and how does it differ from structured development? Right. So the structure approach, which we were doing earlier, structure approach is seen as the most direct way of implementing the desired goal. In the structured approach, the main emphasis is on specifying and decomposing system functionality. So earlier, when object-oriented development was not there, it was structural approach or structured development was there. So what emphasis we were doing was we were specifying the we were specifying the functions, and we were decomposing the functions or making smaller functions. That was the main purpose. A structured approach has certain basic problems, such as if the requirements of the system change, then a system based on decomposing functionality may require massive restructuring and the system gradually becomes unmanageable. So what they are saying in the structured approach, we used to decompose when there are many changes in the system or requirement changes in the system. So then we have from the scratch only if we are decomposing the functionality, or we are a function is decomposed, or sub functions are made, right, smaller functions are made. So we have to make changes in the from starting only. Massive restructuring has to be done from starting only. We have to see that change has occurred. So from the start we have to gradually manage the change which are there. So sometimes if you have many sub problems, and you have divided your problem into sub problems, and a change is occurring, so you, from the starting only, you have now again have to restructure and see how it will become unmanageable for you. So that is the problem. In contrast to the structured approach, the basic focus of object oriented approach is to identify objects from the application domain and then associate procedure methods around these objects. So in what benefit object oriented approach gives you is, you are talking not about functions, you're talking about objects first. So objects are the real world entity, and they are the basic building blocks of your object oriented approach. So you will identify the objects and from the application domain, and then associate procedures or methods or functions according to or around these identified objects. If certain changes are made, it will the objects it will affect the objects, but it will not change the massive part of the structure. So that is there. So object oriented development is an indirect way of system development, because in this approach a holistic view of the application domain is considered and objects are identified in the related problem domain, right? So it is an indirect way of system development, because first you will identify the objects, and according to that you will make the your related problem. So a historical view of the application help in realizing the situation and characteristics of the system, taking a holistic view of the problem domain rather than considering the functional requirements of a system single problem given edge to object oriented development. So basic difference is that you are taking a holistic view of the problem. That means you are not going for the functional requirements first. You are taking You are talking about the objects. First you identify the objects, and according to that you will develop the system. So once the objects are created with the needed characteristics, they communicate with each other by message passing during problem solving. So that is the main benefit of object oriented approach, right? So this question can be asked in your theory paper, that what how object oriented development differs from structure development, right? Then again, we are talking about the three models: object model, dynamic model, and functional model of the OMT, object modeling technique. So first is object modeling. Every object has some attribute and behavior. So you will define objects and their attributes and behavior, right? Attributes means properties. Some common examples of objects include car, student, banking, book, teacher, employee. These are objects. Anything which you see in your environment, real world entities, a car, a student, a bank, right, book, teacher, employee, everything is an object. So we can perform many functions on the object, including its characterization, description, organization of objects, combining and manipulating objects, etc. So when you see an object, suppose you are saying a car. If car is an object, then car may have certain attributes or properties, like car can have wheel, a steering, whatever. These are the properties, and then according to that you can see its behavior also. What can car do? That will be its behavior. So the object model can be represented graphically. Now you have identified the object, right? Their characteristics and their behavior and then you will arrange the objects according to the classes. So the object model, the diagram where of the in object modeling, which diagrams you represent graphically is class diagram and object diagram. These are the two diagrams in which you graphically represent object model, right? These are the two diagrams. So we will be studying the diagrams later on. Then dynamic modeling. Now dynamic modeling was flow of data, right? So it is concerned with time, state, and transition from one state to another, right? Events that trigger the transition, actions that happen after the event occurred and are instantaneous. So they basically how from one state to another the information is flowing and changing, or transition is happening, or event is occurring. So those are state transition diagram, sequence diagram, the interaction diagrams. So that those are dynamic modeling. So with those diagrams also we will study later. Then functional modeling is your how information is transformed or data is flowing. So the information is converted and processed. So it represents how the data flow from one operation to another and how data changes from one form to the other. So that is data flow diagram, DFDs, which you must have studied in software engineering also in first semester. So that is there. So DFDs, your entities, data store, processes, and operations. So that is functional modeling. So these are the three models which are there, and according to that, you have different diagrams also, right? Now they are talking about the basic philosophy of object orientation. Philosophy, when you had in those who are from computer background, they must be knowing when they have studied C++ or Java or whatever programming language for object oriented they must have studied. So you must be knowing the different several characteristics or several essential properties of object oriented system. So those basic philosophy we will be talking about. First is sharing of structure and behavior. So one of the reasons for popularity of object oriented technique is that they encourage sharing at different levels. Like inheritance, if we talk about, inheritance is one of the concepts in object oriented where a parent a child can access the functions and properties of the parent. So you are sharing basically. So inheritance is one of the main advantage of any object oriented language because it gives scope to share basic code. So the code written in your parent class, the child class can access, or function written in your parent class, a child class can access that function. So that is what inheritance helps you. That means basic sharing, structure and behavior. The inheritance of both data structure and behavior allows common structure base class to be used in designing many subclasses based on essential characteristics of the base class and develop new classes with less effort. So base class is your parent class, and new classes will be your child class. So you can develop that. most broadly, we can say that object-oriented development not only allows information sharing and reuse within an application, but also gives a base for project enhancement in future. So you can also enhance with the help of inheritance. You can enhance also you can add more functions in your class, and that can be shared with other child classes also. So information sharing is also reuse, because you are reusing the code. It is written in the base class. You again don't have to write it again. You just have to access the from the parent class, and the child class can access that code. So that is reusability. So that is one of the main philosophy of object orientation. The second philosophy is emphasis on object structure, not on operation implementation. That means earlier when C and other languages were there, so we were basically focusing on functions or the implementation operation, right? But in object oriented, the main emphasis is on object. Right. So in object orientation, the major emphasis is given to specifying the characteristics of the objects in a system rather than implementing these characteristics. So we are not directly implementing the characteristics. We are first identifying what are the objects and what are its characteristics. So the uses of an object depend highly on the fact of the application and regular change during development. As requirement extend, the features supplied by an object are much more stable than the ways in which they are used. Hence, software systems built on object structure are more secure. Right. So if your requirements extend, that means you have more requirements. Right. So the features supplied by an object are much more stable than the ways in which they are used. So rather than giving changes in the function, you will be having different added attributes in the object, so that will not affect the system. So software systems built on the objects are more secure. While developing a system using object-oriented approach, the main emphasis should be on the essential properties of the objects involved in the system rather than on the procedure structure used for implementation. So we are not basically dependent on the function or implementation of the operation. We are dependent on the object with and its properties. Right. So that is there. So these are the two basic philosophy of object orientation: sharing of structure and behavior, and emphasis on object structure. Right. Then what are the principles of object orientation? Principles means the concepts or the concepts of object orientation. So the OOAD principles are there. So OOAD will also use OO principles, that are object oriented principles. You have abstraction, one of the principles. Many of you must be knowing about that, those who are from computer background. So abstraction is one of the very important concept of object oriented system. Abstraction focuses on the essential inherent aspects of an object of the system. It does not represent the accidental properties of the system. In system development, abstraction helps focus on what an object is supposed to do before deciding how it should be implemented. So, for example, the best example of abstraction will be you are more the focus is on essential or inherent aspect of the system, not the internal part or the properties or the what are the different properties and how it is implemented. You are not concerned. The outer part, like you know how to drive a car. Example, I am giving you, right? You know how to use a clutch, brake, and accelerator, right? And the steering, you know. But how inside they are working, you have no idea. How the engine is working, how the clutch is working inside, how the brake is working inside, how accelerator is working inside, you have no idea about that. So that is what abstraction is. The essential part which you need to know. How to drive a car, you know that. The internal, what is happening inside, you have no idea. That is what abstraction is. You are everything detailing is hidden inside, and outside only you are using it. Right. So that is what abstraction is. The use of abstraction protects the freedom to make decisions for as long as possible by avoiding intermediate commitments in problem solving. Most modern languages provide data abstraction. Right. With the abstraction, the ability to use inheritance and apply polymorphism provide additional thing. So abstraction is one of the concepts of object-oriented system. Right. Then the second concept is encapsulation. Now, encapsulation is Another concept, which is information hiding, is a principle by which we hide data that we don't want the user to see and show data that we want them to see. It is the feature of separating the external aspect of an object from the internal implementation details of an object. The same example which I have given you of the car, the implementation, you have no idea how it is implemented. Outside, external aspect, how you are using it, you know that. The best example of encapsulation is a class. A class is a collection of objects, right? So a class or an object is an instance of a class. So the class has object instances. So what does a class have? Class will have different objects, right? And their properties and the functions, the behavior, how that is to be implemented. So that will be there. So you can access some part of the public. You have three access specifiers of the class: public, private, and protected. So public, some functions or some objects, or you can say properties, you want the user to be accessed outside, so you give the access to them by making them public, and some of them you don't want to show to the outside user, so you make them private or protected. So that is encapsulation. You are hiding information. You are just giving them the information which they are need to see, and the other information is hidden from them, that is inside the class, that can only be accessed, that cannot be accessed, only public functions can be accessed. So that is there. That is what encapsulation is: information hiding. So encapsulation enables you to combine data structure and behavior in a single entity. In a single entity means in a class. In a class, you are combining the data structure and behavior in a single entity. Encapsulation helps in system enhancement. If there is a need to change the implementation of an object without affecting its external nature, encapsulation is a great help. So in the class, you can change, you can add the attribute, you can change the function, or you can add the function, you can enhance it, right, without changing anything for the object. So that is what encapsulation helps you, right? Then the other concept is inheritance. Now inheritance, I've already told you, reusability of code will be done by inheritance. So inheritance is taken in the sense of code reuse within object-oriented development. During modeling, we look at resulting classes and try to group similar classes together so that code reuse can be enforced. So like you have a class called vehicle, right? So vehicle class is there. And you also have car, like you have bicycle and you have car. These are the different other classes also. So these are two types of vehicles. So you can group them inside. They are type of vehicles. So you can make vehicle as a parent class and two child classes as bicycle and car. Right. So this is what you do in inheritance. You group the classes according to their thing so that they can reuse the code according. Right. Or we can also have an example of a student, and there are two types of student: an undergraduate and a graduate student. Right. So you are making two classes, subclasses of a student class. Student class is a parent class, and you have two types of other classes, undergraduate and a graduate, right? So that can be divided. So we have two things which is known as generalization and specialization. So this can also be asked, a question can be asked on generalization and specialization also. And inheritance have a very close association with them. Generalization is used to refer to the relationship among classes, and inheritance is used for sharing attributes and operation using the generalization relation. So basically, inheritance and generalization are the same thing. You generalize, that means you make class and parent class and subclass, or right, base class and subclass in generalization, and that is inheritance. And inheritance, you can share the attributes. So in respect of inheritance, generalization and specialization are two faces of a coin, in the sense that if subclass is seen from the superclass, the subclass is seen as a specialized version. So if you see a subclass according to the superclass, right? From the superclass, if you see a subclass, so subclass is a specialized version of a superclass, right? And in reverse, a superclass looks like a general form of subclass. So generalization is from top to bottom, and if matlab, bottom to top, and specialization is top to bottom. That is what generalization and specialization is. So use inheritance when one object behaves like another rather than just when is a relationship applies. So they are saying when one object behaves like another, then you will use inheritance, not is a relationship you will use. So we'll talk about that later on. So during inheritance, a subclass may override a superclass feature by defining that feature with the same name. Overriding is a part of polymorphism, right? What is overriding will do is you have a function or a method in the superclass, that is your parent class, and that the method which is in the parent class you want to override, or you want to have some other implementation in the child class. So you will have the same name of the function but with different implementation. That is overriding. We'll talk about that also later on. So this is another concept, inheritance. So they are giving you an example of inheritance, like you have a class called shape. So you have three child classes: circle, triangle, square, types of shapes. Just this triangle arrow which is showing, this is how generalization is shown. This is how generalization is shown, right? Shape has two functions called draw and erase. These are the functions. Circular brackets means these are functions. Draw and erase. So draw and erase can be the circle class can also access it, triangle class can also access it, square class can also access it, because they are child classes of shape. So they can access the functions of the parent class. So this is single inheritance, parent-child relationship, single inheritance. When you talk about multiple, you have different types of inheritance also. You have single, multiple, multi-level. So there are different types of inheritance. Hybrid inheritance is also there. So in multiple inheritance, what happens is a single child class can have two parents, right? Like aeroplane and helicopter are having aeroplane is having a parent of fly thing and also run thing. Fly thing, run thing, both are the parents of aeroplane. So if you have two parents, a child has two parents, that is known as multiple inheritance. Same way, helicopter also have fly and run, but car is single inheritance. Car is run thing only. Fly is not the part. So car is run. Helicopter and aeroplane have multiple inheritance because they have two parents, right? So that is what multiple inheritance is there. Then polymorphism is another concept. So these are the four concepts which you have. So polymorphism is closely related to inheritance. When one class inherits from another, then polymorphism allows a subclass to stand in for the superclass. The class. So basically, they have not given a proper example. If we talk about like uh, you have a function called add in your program, right? And you have another function add only with the same name add. But how do you differentiate that both the functions are doing different thing? Because same, you are not creating the same kind of function. You're creating a different kind of function, but with the same name, right? Poly means many, morphism means form. Polymorphism. Poly means many. Morphism means form. So many forms. So a single function you can use in many forms. That is what it means. So suppose you have an add function. If an add function can add in two integers, so it is adding two integers. If you pass two integers to the function, it will add two. But you can have another add function with three, which can have three integers, which can add three integers. So if you pass three integers, so it will be accessed by the three one, which is having three parameters, right? You can have four parameter add function. So you have three kinds of add function. One is adding two variables. Second, the other is adding three variables. The other is adding four variables. This is one kind of polymorphism. Then data type polymorphism can also be done. Like you are adding float You are adding integers, then integer add will be there. You are that means the function data type will be integer. You can have float addition also, so float data type will be there. You can these are the different things you can do with polymorphism. Function is add only, the data type you have given different, so that is also different kind of addition, right? So that is polymorphism. So polymorphism are of two types. One is known as overloading, which I have told you, like add. The other is overriding, which we talked about in inheritance right now. So in overriding, what you do is a function in superclass, uh, and you are accessing, you are taking that function in the subclass, but with different implementation. So you want the same name of the function but with different implementation, that is known as overriding. But that happens in parent and child class, right? That is overriding. So here they are giving you an example. An object-oriented program to calculate the area of different figures would simply call the find area function on each figure where it is a circle, triangle or something else. The decision of which procedure to use is made implicitly by each object based on its class polymorphism. So here, if you have circle, triangle, square, all the different functions will be using find area, but this one will have different formula, this one will have different formula, this one will have different formula. Same function but with different implementation. So that is polymorphism, right? So now they remember that in your study material you have check progress questions. Do these check progress question also, you have answers of the check progress question at the end of your unit. So if you go here, these are your check progress answers. So do go through them also. Sometimes questions from check progress also comes in your examination. So go through them also. Like here it is, what is object oriented modeling? What are the different types of object oriented modeling process? Different steps of the object oriented modeling process, the stages, right? Requirement, defining requirement, analysis, design and all that. Then differentiate object oriented approach of the system development from the structured approach of system development. So you are differentiating both of them. These are the questions they have asked. Then comes basic constructs of object orientation. In object oriented modeling, objects and their characteristics are described. So we know that objects, the main thing is objects and their characteristics are, or the properties are defined. In any system, objects come into existence to play some role. In defining the roles of objects, some features of object oriented are used. So the basic concepts, the different features or concepts you should know are classes, objects, links, association, generalization, inheritance. So what is a class? First, class is an object. What is a class? Class is a collection of things or concepts that have same characteristics, right? So it is a collection of things or collection of objects also, you can say, or concepts that have same characteristics. Each of these things are or concepts is called an object. So class is a collection of objects, and object is an instance of a class also, you can say, right? So class define the basic words of the system being modeled using a set of classes or as a core vocabulary of a software project. So classes are the foundation of for data modeling. So what are the characteristics? What are the different things you keep in a class? You have attributes, you have operations in a class. So attributes are name slots for data values that belong to the class. The different objects of a given class typically have at least some differences in values of their attributes. Operation represents services that an object can request to affect the behavior of the object or the system itself. So you have, if you have to make a class in a UML diagram, UML notation, if you have to make a class, you will have class, you will have its attributes and operations. A rectangle will be made with three division. First, you will put the class, name of the class. Second will be you will put the attributes of the class. Third, you will put the operations of the class. Operations means methods or functions of the class, right? So box notation, box kind of with three sections will be there. In bold, you will write the class name, and other things you can write in normal case. That is there, right? So this kind of a thing. You can also show a class without its attribute. So if without its attribute, it will be like this. or single class name also can be there. Class with only attribute, no operation can also be there. So you can make like that also. So naming convention, what is the naming convention of a class is that classes names are simple nouns or noun phrases. So like car, student, or whatever noun you want to make. Attribute name in a class are simple nouns or noun phrases. The first word is not capitalized, but subsequent words may be capitalized. So you can write in small letters also, attribute doesn't matter. But in a class, the first letter you should capitalize so that you should understand that is the name of the class, right? Attributes you can give. So attribute can be like if student is a class, so student ID, that means roll number, ID, whatever you can say. That is one of the attribute. Name is the attribute. Student name is the attribute. Address, subject, whatever. Uh, these are the attributes of the class. Then operation names are simple verbs. So operation in for a student class will be like student detail, uh, display student, or add student, whatever, delete student, modify student detail, whatever. So these are the operations. With as with attributes, the first word is not capitalized, subsequent word may be capitalized, right? So this is how you draw a class notation. This is how you make a class notation. Then for objects, if you have to make an object diagrams, and how do you make an object? The notation for an object is the same in basic form as that of a class. Like in a class, writing class name. In an object notation, you will write object colon class. The object name colon class name, right? So there are three differences between the notation which are within the top section of the class box. The name of the class to which the object belongs appears after the colon. So yeah, for which class the object belongs after colon, you will put the class name. The object may have a name which appears before the colon, or it may be anonymous, in which case nothing appears before the colon. If your object is anonymous, it has no name, then nothing will appear before the class. But you have to give the class name for which class you are giving that. The content of the top compartment are underlined for an object, so you will underline them. Each attribute defined for the given class has specific value for each object that belongs to that class. So now, if your suppose here student class is there, colon student class is there, and the name of the object is, suppose name is Suman, a name of the student Suman colon student. Attribute one is roll number. So equal to the value of the roll number you have to give. Then name is the second attribute, equal to the name of the student, like Suman you have to give. So this is how you denote a object notation. Colon class name will be there, name of the object, colon class name, and attribute with the value you have to give. Right? This is how you do object notation, right? So communication by message passing. So how you will agree that a single object alone is generally not very useful. Objects usually appear as a component of a larger program or a system. Though the interaction of these objects, the functionality of system is achieved, software objects interact and communicate with each other by message passing to each other. When object X wants object Y to perform one of the methods of object Y, object X sends a message to object Y. Message passing provides two significant benefits. An object characteristics are expressed through its methods, so message passing support all possible interaction between objects. It closes the gap between object do not need to be in the same process or even on the same machine to send and receive messages back and forth to each other. So from one object to another, you can communicate by passing messages. So that is there. Now they are giving you difference between object and class. Object is considered as a physical entity. Class is defined as an entity that exists logically. Any number of objects can be created for a class. Class is declared once. Instance of a class is an object. Class is used to group similar objects. This is a difference they are giving you. Now, what is links and association? Now, links and association are basic means to establish relationship among objects and classes of the system. So, a link is a physical or conceptual connection between objects. For example, a student named Shrikant study in IGNOU. Mathematically, you can define like a link as a tuple that is in an ordered list of objects. Further, a link is also defined as an instance of an association. In other words, you can say that an association is a group of links with a common structure and meaning. For example, a student studying in a university. So here, what you are saying, student is one object of class, and university is another class. Student registered in university. So this line is your association or link. This is a link. Association and classes are similar, as classes describe objects and association describe links. Right. So registered in is the association name, that what association is being is between these two classes. So this is what a link or a relationship between this is there. Note that every association has roles. You also have roles also of the association. This is the name of the association registered in. The role is student study, university teach. These are the role. Right. For example, two classes, student and university, have the defined roles. Here you can also see that binary association has two roles, one for each class. So this is binary association. Student study, university teach. Right. Associations may be binary, ternary, or have higher order. In exercise, the vast majority of association are binary or ternary association. But a ternary association is formed compulsion. It cannot be converted into a binary. So this is a ternary association. Student, teacher, class. Three classes are there, and student and class, student and teacher, class. So this is a ternary association. If you talk about. Right. So this is a ternary association. So these are the links or association, links and association. Right. Now they are talking about multiplicity. Multiplicity is an association specifies how many objects participate in a single relationship. Multiplicity decides the number of related objects. Multiplicity is generally explained as one or many, but generally it is the subset of the non-negative integers. Right. So multiplicity is like how many student and how many teacher, or how many student and universe. One university will have many students. So one to many relationship will be there. Right. One university will have many students. So 0 or 1 is 0 dot dot 1. 1 only is 1. 0 or more is 0 dot dot asterisk 0 or more. 1 or more is 1 dot dot asterisk 1 or more. N is only n, and 0 that is n will be greater than 1. 0 dot dot n is 0 to n. 1 dot dot n is 1 to n. So you can say 1 to 1 to many. Many you can say n. Right. Or 1 to or you can say 1 or more. 1 or more. Right. Student. 1 university, 1 or more student. So that kind of a relationship. So in association, general movement in both directions of the relationship. But if you want to be specific in any particular direction, you can mark the arrow. So here they have marked the arrow student and program. So one student can apply for many programs, 0 or more programs. So 0 or more and one student, multiplicity. This is multiplicity. So you have put that from student to program, you are giving an association, right? So if I want to put an association from university to student, so one university and one or more student, or 0 or more can also be there. Then what is aggregation? Right, aggregation is a special form of association which models a part, whole, or a part of, or has a relationship as an aggregate, the whole and parts. The is a relationship refers to inheritance, and has a relationship refers to aggregation or composition. So if it is a has a relationship, then it is aggregation. If it is a relationship, then it is inheritance. So we are talking about aggregation, which is part, whole, or part of, or has a relationship. So like student has applied for many programs, or student has programs applied for, so has a relationship. So you will this diamond thing is aggregation, hollow diamond. This is how you show aggregation. So the most considerable property of aggregation is transitivity. If X is part of Y and Y is part of Z, then X is part of Z. Kind of transitivity is there. So aggregation is seen as a relationship with which an assembly class is related to a component class. In this, component object do not have the separate existence, depend on composite objects. So here, if you see, exam schedule does not have a separate existence. The exam schedule class is part of the candidate. It is not a separate. This is whole, candidate is whole, and exam schedule is part of that candidate class. Aggregation is shown like this. Whole part relationship, that is aggregation. Right. You also have composition. See, exam schedule can be separate also from the candidate, but it is part of the candidate in an exam system, examination system. It is part of the candidate, but it can be separate also, right? So this is whole part. But when the one class is fully dependent on the other, if that class is not there, the part one will also not remain. That is composition. And in composition, this diamond will be filled. Dark diamond will be there. Black colored dark diamond will be there. If composition is there, fully dependency is composition. So you have two, aggregation and composition. So composition is not aggregation. Aggregation is whole part whole, or is part of relationship. But composition is completely part of relationship. If completely without that class, the other class will not be there, then it is composition. Then there is generalization and inheritance. So generalization and inheritance are powerful abstractions for sharing the structure and behavior of one or more classes. Generalization is the relationship between a class, and it defines a hierarchy of abstraction in which subclasses, one or more, inherit from one or more superclasses. So generalization and inheritance are transitive across a subjective number of levels in the hierarchy. Generalization is a kind of relationship. For example, saving account is a kind of account. PG student is a kind of student. So generalization, in generalization, it is a part of inheritance only, transitive, right? So if you have an account class, you have two types of accounts: saving account, current account. So account will be your parent or super class, and saving account and current account will be child class or subclasses. Type of account, right? Saving account is a kind of account. This is child class of account. And if there is a student and PG student, postgraduate PG student will be part of, is a kind of student, right? So that is generalization. So notation of generalization is a triangle like this, a triangle connecting a superclass to its subclasses like this. These are the subclasses, they are being connected with a triangle arrow kind of a thing. A line connects a superclass to the top of the triangle. Lines connecting the subclasses to a horizontal bar attached to the base of the triangle. So this is how generalization is shown, right? This is generalization. Now, identifying classes. So in your object-oriented analysis and design, you have to identify the different classes which are there. So in object-oriented modeling, the first thing is the identification of classes. That is the key activity. So to identify the classes in a system includes textual analysis. When you look for nouns and verbs in your use case to figure out classes and related method, is called textual analysis. When you have a good use case, complete textual analysis is a quick and easy way to figure out classes in your system. So you have to find out your classes, right? So for finding the classes, which could be representative of the problem domain. So first you have to find the nouns. To find the nouns, you have to read through the problem statement and the associated documentation and highlight the nouns. Nouns you identify in the text or conversation with the client, generally translate into classes or objects, attributes or attribute values. So you first find out the nouns. For what are the different nouns when you talk to the client or the customer. You find out from the requirement what are the different nouns which are there. Whether they are making an employee management system, student management system, whatever they are making, you will find out from them what are the different nouns. For that, you will decide later on that these nouns can be classes or objects or attribute values, whatever. The verbs you identify in the analysis often reveal operations or associations, and the verbs which you identify will be your operations or functions, right? While interaction with the client user, you should ask questions related to the system with respect to the problem domain. So we will find out from the, you will talk to the client, you will find out the requirements, and from that you will find out what are the classes, what are the nouns, different nouns, and from those nouns you will find out the classes and attributes, objects, and then you will also find out the verbs. Verbs will be your functions or associations, functions or operations. Then you will evaluate the nine to find classes. Now see all the nouns which you have found out from the requirement. See which is the noun which you from which you find out a particular class. So it is the term identified actually needed within the scope of the project or not. So all the nouns you will see, and then you will see whether you need it in the project or not. So if needed, then does this noun qualify as a problem domain resource? If answer to point 2 is yes, then think of an appropriate class name for domain resource to which the noun is referring. So you will, if that is required in the project and it is an important thing, then you will make it a class name. Otherwise, find whether this noun is an example of a class, for example, an object or an instance of a class. So if it is an object, or it will be an class, so you will find out that and then decide the name of the class, name of the object, right? Noun can also be divided in the, if there are nouns which are attributes, properties of the class, you will also find out that. So this is the way you will find it, and then define the purpose. You need to have a proper description about why the class is required, the source of the problem. Why this class is required, also you have to write it. So this is the way you will find out what are the different classes which you will be using in the problem. Right? So then for object modeling, and they are giving you an example of an object model. Here we have a simple object model of a university system with respect to different level of courses offered by the university. Right? So if you see here, you have university. This is generalization or inheritance. You have types of departments here: university administration, faculty, registration, and evaluation. Registration and evaluation also have student, right? Student are of different types, like PG student, diploma, UG student. PG student are of different types, like MCA, MBA, MSc, MA. Diploma are of PG diploma, UG diploma. UG diploma, UG student are UG diploma also, and BCA, BSc, BA, BCom. Object model for a university system they are talking about. Here, if I have to make this object model, I will not use this generalization here. I will use generalization for types of student, types of PG, types of diploma, types of UG student, but I will not use university type. I will use aggregation here. University has administration department, faculty department, registration and evaluation department. University has. So I will use aggregation, a diamond, rather than a triangle. I will use this one. University administration is part of university, faculty is part of university, registration and evaluation are part of university, right? And registration and evaluation has student are part of registration and evaluation. So I will use again aggregation here also. Here also aggregation. I will not use this, right? You can also use composition here, registration and evaluation. Composition can be used here. A filled diamond, a type of aggregation. Composition is a type of association where whole relationship is there. That means without registration and evaluation, students are not there. So you can use composition also. And without university, administration, faculty, and registration will also not be. So here also I will use composition, right? So this is how they have developed, and here I will use generalization, inheritance. Here it is okay, type of student and all that. So that is one thing. Then benefits of object orientation modeling. So they are saying what are the advantages of benefits of object oriented modeling. So one of the benefit is reuse of the code. So reuse and emphasis on quality are the major highlights of object-oriented modeling. So one of the benefit is there. Object-oriented modeling provides resistance to change. You can make changes to the system. Encapsulation and abstraction can be done, right? So these are the faster development you can do. Increase quality you can do. Easier maintenance, reuse of software and design framework you can do. Reduce development risk for complex system integration. These are the advantages of using an object-oriented modeling, right? The conceptual structure of object orientation helps in providing an abstraction mechanism modeling which include classes, objects, inheritance, association, right? So these are the things you will be using while making the object-oriented method, right? Then introduction to object-oriented analysis and design tools. Now, what all tools you will be using in object-oriented analysis? One of the tool is Unified Modeling Language, UML. So UML is a well accepted language for OAD. It is not a programming language. It is a language for modeling, right? UML is a language for modeling, not for programming. So Unified Modeling Language is a well accepted language for object oriented analysis and design. It is a design modeling language. So it is used for visualizing, specifying, constructing, and final documentation. So this UML you can use. The basic building blocks of UML used for OAD are things, relationship, and diagram. Basically, unified modeling language focusing on the concepts of BOOCH, OMT, and object-oriented software engineering. The results of these concepts is a single, common, and widely usable modeling language for users and these and other methods. The unified modeling language also promotes the concept of what can be done with existing methods, right? So we will be studying about UML, the different diagrams which are there in UML, right? So the many modern applications are being developed based on object oriented principles such as classes, methods, and inheritance. For making representing these features of the system to be developed, some tools are used. These tools support UML features and building blocks. Object modeling case tools support object oriented modeling notations and methodologies. So they are talking about that UML only. So we UML modeling tools are there, right? Since UML is a fast-growing engineering, this list may keep on changing all the time. To draw UML diagrams, many tools are available. You may draw UML diagrams using simple drawing tools, MS Word or Paint, but that will require a lot of effort if you want to draw it in Word or Paint. So you have different tools like Star UML. So you can when you will be doing practical for this UML, practical for this, please download this Star UML on your system. All those who have system, please download this Star UML. The website is also given here. You can download this Star UML, and you can we can make our UML diagrams in on those systems. That is your practical part, right? So it is an if even if you those who have not submitted their assignments and they have to submit the assignments, you can use this Star UML software to make the class diagram, use case diagram, and other diagrams from the Star UML, right? So you can use this and make up JPG image format, and you can paste it on your file for theory and practical assignments. So it is an open source software to develop a flexible, extensible, featureful, and freely available UML platform. This platform is compatible with UML 2.6. So you can use that. Star UML is a multilingual project. So many programming languages can be used to develop Star UML. For example, C, C++, Java, Visual Basic, Delphi, JScript, VBScript, C#, VB.NET. So you can use that, right? So you have Mac, Windows, and Linux. It works on all the things. You have entity relationship diagram, DFD, flowchart diagram. Then other UML diagrams which are there, class diagram. So they are there. There is another one which is BOUML, right? So it is a UMKL diagram designer software. It runs under Windows, Linux, and Mac operating systems. It can be used for automatic generation of code from the UML class diagrams and rebuild them from existing source code like this. So I don't know this is freely available or not, but you can see that if it is freely available. This is free for certain days, right? Trial period is free, Star UML. right? You can use that. Visual Paradigm is another software which you can use. This is also free for some days. Visual Paradigm. This is another. So Star UML and Visual Paradigm both you can use, right? Agro UML is there. Magic Draw is there, right? Then Rational Rose. This is a proprietary software. This is of Microsoft, right? So it is a proprietary software. So others you can see whether they are freely available. So that you can download. So here also they have asked you what is association, what is multiplicity in association, what is inheritance. They are asking you. So these are the answers to the check progress question. Right? Any doubt anybody is having up until what we have studied right now? Any doubt? See, Star UML actually my trial version is finished, so it may not open right now. I'll see if it can be open, but it is right now not opening. And also installed another version. I don't know whether it is there or not. I have used Draw.io also. This is another I am using. Right, this is another I am using. So here you can use the different options here. So here also, like here you have UML. Here miscellaneous, advanced, basic, arrows, flowchart, entity relation, UML. So if you go to UML, then you will find the different like here. This is object. This is a class. So if you want to make a class, this is how it will do. You can name a class. You can put a class name. Here you will put the attribute. Here you will put the method. This is how you will make it. And then you can also create another class also. So like here, you can put a name to the class. So this is another one. It's freely available. So this is how. So if I make another class here, you can make a relationship between these two. Relationship. See, this is aggregation. This is parent child. This is composition. So this kind of a thing. So we'll talk about that later on. I'm just giving you an example. If you want to make a simple thing, you can do that like this. Like this. Right? So this we will talk about. So this is another software which you can use apart from this. Right? So Draw.io is this one, what I am using. You can use, if you are able to download Star UML, you can go for Star UML also. Right? Then when we go to the second unit, any doubt anybody is having in the first unit? Anybody has any doubt?
No doubt, ma'am.
In the second unit, we will be talking about UML. Yeah, they are talking about UML, Unified Modeling Language, which is a standard modeling language, and it is different from other programming languages such as C++ and Java. It is a pictorial language. It is not a programming language, right? So UML is used to design models for large, medium, as well as small application. UML was created by Object Management Group, and the current version of Unified Modeling Language, they are talking about 2.5.1, but now that is June 2017. Now in 2025, it may have gone to more advanced levels. So you have Star UML, Agro, Eclipse. So if we talk about Star UML, if I don't know, so I think this is the website for Star UML. You can download it, right? This is this is the software which is there. So if we download it, version 7.0.0. This version is there, the new software. So you can download it. Maybe you have to make a what do you say login and all that. So you can check that. I'm just giving an example, right? So in UML, you have different types of diagrams, right? The different types of behavioral diagrams are activity, use case, interaction, state machine, sequence, communication, timing diagram, interaction overview. In behavioral diagrams, we will be studying activity diagram, use case diagram, state machine diagram, and in interaction diagram, we will be talking about sequence diagram, right? Sequence and communication diagram. So these are the diagrams you will be 9 diagrams you will be studying from the different diagrams. So you have 2 types of diagram. One is structure, one is behavioral, right? So UML diagrams denote 2 different views of a system model as static and dynamic. So structural diagrams are static diagrams and behavioral are dynamic diagrams. Right. The static or structural view focuses on the system static structure using other attribute, operation, and relationship. Structural diagram do not employ time-connected concept, do not display the detail of behavior, dynamic behavior. There are 7 types of structural diagrams such as class diagram, object diagram, component diagram, composite structure diagram. But we will be studying class, object, component, and deployment. These are the diagrams. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 diagrams are there. 1, 2, 3, 4 diagrams we will be studying from this, right? And in behavioral diagrams, behavioral modeling, they are the dynamic or behavioral view represent the dynamic nature of the system, and this view contains diagrams like use case, interaction, activity, state chart diagram. So we will be studying 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 or 5, yeah, 4 diagrams here, right? So there are many advantages of using UML. You may specify the structure and behavior of the system, which actually shows the blueprint of the system. It breaks a large complex system into separate fragments that can be understood easily. It can be easily grasped by the new team members. The design UML model is not platform specific, hence it can be used by many developers who are working on different platforms. These are the advantages of using UML, that you can specify the structure and behavior and show the blueprint of the system, and you can break the large system into a complex system into separate fragments. You can also the new members who join your team can also understand the diagrams and can easily grasp it, and it is not designs or platform specific. That means it's not a programming language, it's a pictorial representation, it's not actually a programming language. UML notation play an important role. So we will be talking about UML notation. Notation means that how the diagram is drawn or how a particular notation is there. So basic structural modeling. Modeling means creating a diagram for a system that includes identifying the elements that are important to your particular module. The structural modeling gives a structural view of a system that highlights the structure of the objects, including the classifiers, relationship, attributes, and operation. So first we are talking about the 2 types of diagrams. We have structural diagram and behavioral diagram. So when we talk about structural diagrams, so structural diagram talks about the structure of the system. That means the objects, their relationship, their attributes, and classes. So these elements form the vocabulary of the system you are modeling. For example, if you are going to buy a car, things like wheels, frame size, color, lights, and engine are some things that will be worthful to you in understanding about the car. These things are properties of the car. In UML, all of these things are modeled as classes. So cars have external and internal structure. Only important properties of car are visible and rest are hidden. The feature is called abstraction. So class is an abstraction of the things that are a part of your vocabulary. For creating a structural model, you have to collect key data contained in the problem domain. Right. So if we talk about the car, so you will first you will have for core elements of structural modeling, if you have to draw class diagram, so you need to know about the class. The class is the notation is like this: class name, attribute, operation. In a rectangular box, three sections are there. So class is a blueprint for creating objects. It contains a group of objects that share the same properties, operations, and relationship. It contains three sections as name, attribute, and operation. This is a class notation. Interface. It is a collection of named operations that describe the behavior of an element. You can neither define any attribute nor any implementation of the operation in the interface. So interface is a connection between classes or objects. So this is how interface is there. Or you can have interface as a circular this, right? So this is interface notation. We'll talk about that later on. What is interface? Then component. A component diagram is used to split the actual system into various modular parts. Each component has one clear aim within the whole system. If you are developing a student management system, so you will be having student module, you will be having attendance module, you will be having classes module, whatever. So each module will be a component. So this is how component is denoted. This is the notation for component. Then node. It is a runtime physical object that denotes a computational resource such as server, router. So when we talk about deployment diagram, in deployment diagram, when you deploy your software on the system, so what all things you require? You require a server, you require a computer, whatever, internet, or whatever physical things you require. So that is denoted by this cube, a node. This is a node notation, runtime physical object. Then constraint. Constraint is a condition. Suppose one can take admission if he has 75 more than 75% marks in the 12th or whatever in undergraduate. So if you want to give a condition, right, so that this is how constraint is given or a condition is given, right? So these are the notations which you have. For example, mobile, TV, RAM, and car are you can say the object is a fundamental construct. So these are the objects. You can say every object has identity, like person has name, age, and address. Identity means the characteristics, right? So that is what they are talking about. So first we are talking about classes. A class describes a group of objects which have common attributes or properties, operations or behavior, relationship, and semantics. Classes are an essential structure of an object-oriented system. When you develop any system, you need classes to collect the system vocabulary. These classes may relate to the problem domain as well as implementation. Classes can be used to represent anything from hardware, software to purely conceptual things. A class describes only important attributes to an application and ignores the rest. It is known as an abstraction, an important feature of object-oriented concepts. So this is how classes, class syntax or class notation is there. So here first section will be class name, then will be attributes, then will be operations. So if you are seeing here minus and plus, if you see here, minus means private, and plus means public. The three access specifiers, if you know about programming in object oriented in C, or Java, you have public, private, protected. So that way, a class is graphically designed as a rectangle with three sections that comprises its name, attribute, and operations. For example, car class contain attributes: maker name, wheel size, gears, frame size, and color, and operation, repair, and move. So you have a car as the name of the class. Maker name is an attribute, wheel size is an attribute, gears are attribute, frame size is an attribute, color is an attribute. And the operations or functions are repair and move. And circular bracket, because functions you represent with circular brackets, so you will give that, right? So you may say that a class contains infinite set of individual objects with the same name, structure, and behavior operations. Each object is termed as an instance of a class. So each instance known as object of the class has its own value for each attribute, but shares this attribute name and operation with other class instances. So if we have to make an object notation for this car class, so suppose car is whatever Maruti's whatever name of the car, Baleno or whatever, here colon car, right? So maker name you will say Maruti, wheel size whatever the size is, gears, frame size, color, whatever the value you will give equal to, that will be your the functions you don't require in an object object notation, but these are the things you will give. Following are some points for creating a class. Each class must have a unique name. A class is name is a textual string, right? Class may or may not have attributes. An attribute is defined by a name that contains a series of values. For example, person class have attribute like name, age, address. In similar way, car class may have attribute like frame size, wheel size, gears, color, and make. So this is there. You can also mention attribute types like maker name string, data type is string, wheel size is integer, whatever. You can give the data type also. A class may or may not have operations. So operations you can give or you may not give. So an operation describes the behavior of the class. An operation has a name like a class name. Usually the operation name is written as a short text string that represents some behavior of its enclosing parts. For example, car class may have operation like move and repair. You can identify an operation by declaring its signature. Graphically, operation is given in a section just below the class attribute. You can also define the visibility of class members, that is your access specifiers, attributes and operations by using plus sign for public, negative sign for private, hash sign for protected, and tilde sign for package. So there are 4 signs actually. For package we do not give generally, we only give plus and minus. Protective also we give, but rarely we give. So plus and minus we generally use public and private. So plus means public and minus means private, negative sign, right? Then relationship are define how classes communicate with each other. There are 3 basic types of relationship in UML: dependencies, generalization, and association for connecting or communicating classes to each other. So all these things you should know. What is dependency, generalization, and association? The 3 basic types of relationships, right? A relationship is shown as a path with different types of lines used to differentiate the categories of relationship between classes. So if dependency is there, describe the relationship on classes in which one class is dependent on another class. It means that if you make changes in one class, it will affect the other class. For example, class vehicle uses the properties and operations of another class, say body shop, but not necessarily the reverse. You can show dependency as a dash directed line directed to the class being dependent upon the class. So like this, vehicle is dependent on body shop, dependency, dotted dash line, arrow line. This is dependency, right? Then generalization is a kind of relationship. It creates relationship between superclass, base class, and subclass. That is inheritance, parent and child relationship, enabling inheritance of attribute and operation. It defines a base parent class with some property function. A new class will be derived from the base class. It is called child class or subclass. So like here, vehicle, there are 2 types of child class, car, bus. Triangle is shown. This is generalization. So vehicle class is superclass or a base or parent class, and car and bus are child or subclasses, right? So your hollow arrow with a line is your inheritance. Then association is a part of relationship between classes. It refers to relationship between classes in which objects of one class are connected to the other class objects for communicating data, right? Like here, school and university, right? They are not giving that example actually. Um, when you connect just two classes is called a binary association, and association can also have more than 2 classes, which will be known as n-ary associations. So one more form of association is of aggregation that specifies a whole part relationship between the aggregate, whole and part component. For example, paragraph is part of Word document. So each association can have a name, role, multiplicity, and aggregation. Now, association is a part of relationship. So school works for the university. So association name is works for. A simple association, a single line will be simple association. Then you can give the multiplicity, one or many schools work for one university, right? These are the role names. Schools are employee and employer is university. Just an example. For example, Ingdu University has many schools. There are two classes, schools and university. Both the classes are related to each other, so they are giving that. So this is, you can also have aggregation, part of relationship. Then you will have diamond, uh, one which will be there. So we'll talk about that, right? Then common mechanism during designing your application, you might need to describe information through representations. This section explains to use some important terms or notation that might be useful in designing UML diagrams. So like you can give node or embedded URL. So this is the thing you will give, right? You can give constraint, stereotype, values. So constraint means a condition. So both can be given in this. So constraint is like allow only one course per student, right? This is a constraint you are giving. So this kind of a thing. So you can give that. Notes are used to define comments, explanation for documentation purpose only. So these are notes. It cannot have any effect on the semantic of the model. A note may simply comprise normal text or graphical symbols. Graphically, a note is depicted as a rectangular box with a dog-eared corner along with the comment like this. And tagged value is used to create extension or new information or properties of UML element. Graphically, you can draw tagged value as a string enclosed in brackets like this, curly brackets. And stereotype is used to create a new building block, and stereotype is like this, arrowed form. This is the stereotype. This is stereotype we have given last date, right? Then constraint is defined as a condition for UML that will be checked at the runtime of application. So this is the condition constraint we have given, right? So these are the things which you are talking about. Then we have created a class diagram. Class diagram is one of the most common diagram which is used to model object-oriented system. The class diagram depicts the logical structure of the system. It shows classes, interfaces, and their relationship. When you draw class diagram, you can use only those class attributes and that are important in current context of your application and display related classes in the same diagram. It gives a static view of the system. So you have university, school, faculty, student, program, course. These are the different classes. So university has many schools. One university has many schools. Has a relationship will be aggregation. So here you have aggregation. Schools can have separate also, but they are part of the university. Whole part relationship has a relationship. So university aggregation relationship with school. So one university has one or many schools. Then school has faculties. Again, aggregation relationship. School assigned to faculty. So again, aggregation relationship. One school can have many faculties, and a one-to-one relationship is also there, that one school can have 0 or 1 head of the department, HOD, as faculty as a HOD, right? Then school and program have normal association, normal relationship. One or many schools can have one or more program, right? And university has students. Students are part of university. So again, aggregation is there. One university can have many students, right? So student are registered in the university. This is association name. Student enroll for the program, right? Again, you can give many to many relationship. Many students enroll for many programs, right? You can have many to many relationship here. And then program and course. Again, courses are part of the program. So again, aggregation relationship is that one program can have many courses, and faculty one or many faculty can teach one or many courses. So these are the relationship which is there. This is a class diagram they are showing. Class diagram for student registration, right? So university, school, program, these are the classes. The university has many schools and each school have many programs. Each program consists of many courses. Faculties are assigned to schools and these faculties teach many courses. At least one faculty work as HOD of school. One condition for student registration, one student per program can only be registered. So here a constraint is given that one student per program. condition is given here. University and school classes have one to many relationship, while school and program classes have many to many relationship. Both school and program classes states that many school contain many programs. This is how they have made the class diagram. Any doubt in this? How class diagram is drawn? So here again, check progress question. They are asking what is UML, what is the advantage of UML, using UML. Can you name the types of modeling? Right? What are the structural diagrams? Define the class diagrams. The structural diagrams, you have a class diagram, object diagram, component diagram. So you have to define class diagram here. How many types of relationship exist in UML? 3 types are there. Dependency, generalization, and I think aggregation. Association, sorry. Right? Association is also of 2 types, so that what we can explain each of them with the diagram. So you can find the answers at the end of the topic. And tomorrow we will be doing advanced structural modeling. We will be talking about more about the class, how to draw the class. We'll just go through fast because we have already gone through the how to draw a class diagram. Just we will be going through here fast, and then we will go to the next unit, third, right? So any doubt, anybody? Up to here, whatever you have seen. Anybody is
No, ma'am, no doubt.
So everybody has put their attendance in the chat box. Anything you want to ask? Any doubt or any information you want to ask? Anybody has anything to ask?
No.
Anything about the assignments?
No.
Has anybody started the assignment, doing the assignments? किसी ने स्टार्ट किया है असाइनमेंट करना कि नहीं?
किया है मैम, स्टार्ट किया है.
Already submitted.
Already submitted, okay. फाइन. तो आपको असाइनमेंट के बारे में पता है, मे बी फर्स्ट सेमेस्टर में आपको बताया भी होगा कि आपको क्या करना है, पता है ना आपको? आपको थ्योरी असाइनमेंट जो है वो हैंड रिटन करना होता है, और आप उसको जो ऑनलाइन मीडियम कर रहे हैं तो स्कैन करेंगे और सबमिट करेंगे. और जो प्रैक्टिकल है वो आपका किसमें हो सकता है? आप उसका पीडीएफ बना सकते हैं प्रैक्टिकल का. आप वर्ड फाइल में अपना डायग्राम और अपना आंसर्स टू द डायग्राम वर्ड फाइल में पेस्ट करके पीडीएफ बना के उसको सबमिट कर सकते हैं ऑनलाइन, राइट?
मैम एक चीज पूछना था. मेरे एलएमएस पोर्टल पे 31 अक्टूबर के लिए असाइनमेंट सबमिट करने के लिए दिखा रहा है, लेकिन वो फर्स्ट सेमेस्टर का ही है, सेकंड सेमेस्टर का सब्जेक्ट्स नहीं शो कर रहा है मैम. ऐसा क्यों?
आपने री रजिस्टर किया था सेकंड सेमेस्टर के लिए?
हाँ, यस मैम.
आपके पास इंफॉर्मेशन है तो आप भेज दो इग्नू हेडक्वार्टर्स को, सीओई जो भी आपका ऑनलाइन एलएमएस के लिए है, आप उनको ईमेल कर दो कि मैंने रजिस्टर किया था, ये मेरा इंफॉर्मेशन है, मतलब आपका जो भी डिटेल होगा, जो भी रजिस्ट्रेशन, स्टूडेंट रजिस्ट्रेशन में आपका आ रहा होगा ना सेकंड सेमेस्टर रजिस्टर.
यस यस मैम.
तो आप भेज देना कि एलएमएस पोर्टल पे मेरे सब्जेक्ट्स ऐड नहीं हुए हैं अभी तक.
ओके ओके मैम.
राइट? तो जिनको भी ये प्रॉब्लम आ रहा है एलएमएस वालों का, ऑनलाइन मीडियम वालों का, प्लीज उनको बोल दीजिए ऐड करने को, ठीक है? सब्जेक्ट्स. एवरीबॉडी हैज पुट देयर अटेंडेंस विद नेम एंड एनरोलमेंट नंबर इन द चैट बॉक्स. कोई रहता है?
लास्ट क्लास में किया था, अभी वापस करना पड़ेगा.
हाँ कर दो, मैंने तो बाद में ज्वाइन किया है ना.
यस मैम. एंड मैम वो आप जो कह रहे थे कि प्रैक्टिकल्स हम पीडीएफ में देंगे तो पेन पेपर फॉर्मेट नहीं हो सकता उसका?
आप दे सकते हो पेन पेपर फॉर्मेट, बट आपको डायग्राम करना है, कोड, जैसे आपका जो प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेज से रिलेटेड होगा कोई, आई एम जस्ट गिविंग एन एग्जांपल, सपोज कोई प्रोग्राम आपको करके दिखाना है, तो प्रोग्राम में क्या होगा कि आपको कोड है और उसका इनपुट और आउटपुट स्क्रीनशॉट देने होंगे ना, तो वो हैंड रिटन क्या दोगे फिर? वो तो आप सॉफ्ट कॉपी दे सकते हो ना, राइट। ऐसे ही डायग्राम आपको इसमें OAD में डायग्राम बनाना है, तो डायग्राम तो आप ड्रॉ करना चाहते हो आप कर सकते हो, लेकिन आपको इजी वे ये है कि आप उसका वो स्क्रीनशॉट ले लो, स्टार UML पे आप बना लो और एक स्क्रीनशॉट लेके उसमें पेस्ट कर दो वर्ड फाइल पे और उससे सबमिट कर दो। सॉफ्ट कॉपी दे सकते हो, उसमें हैंड रिटन की जरूरत नहीं है प्रैक्टिकल में। जिन्होंने सबमिट कर दिया इट इज ओके। आई एम जस्ट सजेस्टिंग दैट फॉर प्रैक्टिकल you do not need to give a handwritten, you can have a soft copy because coding उसका screenshot of the input output screen, और जो डायग्राम वाले सिचुएशन है उसमें डायग्राम आप जो भी आप स्टार UML या जो भी सॉफ्टवेयर से कर रहे हैं उसको JPG या जिस फॉर्मेट में आप पेस्ट कर सकते हो वर्ड फाइल में और सबमिट कर सकते हो। जिन्होंने कर दिया है हैंड रिटन, नो प्रॉब्लम।
मैम थ्योरी एग्जाम के पहले प्रैक्टिकल क्या अपलोड किया जा सकता है क्या?
क्या किया जा सकता है?
थ्योरी एग्जाम के पहले ही
प्रैक्टिकल अपलोड किया जा सकता है मतलब?
अभी पेपर एग्जाम नहीं हुए, थ्योरी एग्जाम।
तो थ्योरी एग्जाम तुम्हारे, तुम असाइनमेंट तो पहले ही सबमिट करते हो ना?
जी मैम।
हाँ, तो असाइनमेंट की बात हो रही है यहाँ पे, और किसकी बात कर रही हूँ मैं?
प्रैक्टिकल के बारे में
प्रैक्टिकल असाइनमेंट भी होता है, थ्योरी असाइनमेंट भी होता है, दोनों असाइनमेंट होते हैं ना, सिर्फ प्रैक्टिकल एग्जाम की बात नहीं कर रही हूँ मैं।
मुझे एग्जाम के बारे में समझ में आ गया था, ठीक है
नहीं
मैम।
नहीं, एग्जाम की बात नहीं कर रही हूँ। प्रैक्टिकल एग्जाम तो थ्योरी के बाद होगा, अभी तो तुम्हारा कोई भी एग्जाम नहीं हुआ है सेकंड सेमेस्टर के लिए, ठीक है। एनीथिंग एल्स? शुड वी एंड द क्लास? विल मीट टुमारो देन।
ओके मैम,
ओके देन, टेक
थैंक यू
केयर।
मैम, बाय मैम।
बाय मैम।